Hi, I'm Bob Tabor with www.learnvisualstudio.net. In this module, we're going to use the Azure Storage Client Library to perform common tasks with Azure Table Storage. And so as we get started, just two things that I want to talk about. First of all, your first destination whenever you're looking for some sample code should be this web page. Again, I'm referencing it again. I referenced it in an earlier module, how to use table storage from .NET. It contains lots of snippets of code that you can use to create examples. I use some of these code examples to construct that simple example. We'll review that again here in just a moment. But it has, as you look at the table of contents here at the top, many tasks that you'll probably want to perform, and then those that are a little bit more specialized. I think it even gives you some jumping off points for further exploration, but I would always point you here first. All right, so let's talk about what it would take to actually start using Azure Table Storage in a new application. While you can set up a new storage account from Visual Studio, I still would prefer, let me go ahead and get rid of that. I still would prefer to come to the portal to set it up, because then I can get to this Manage Access Keys option down here. So what was the, Bob's new storage account. If you go to Manage Access Keys, it's going to give you the storage account name and then the primary and secondary access key. You can regenerate the key if you have a security concern, but you could just copy it to your clipboard. And now we're ready to use it inside of our application. So let's just create a new blank application. So I'm going to go to File, New Project. And let's just let's start with something very simple, just a simple console application. I'm going to throw this away. I'm just showing you the steps that you would go through to kind of get things set up. The first thing that we're going to want to do is right-click and select that we want to manage NuGet packages. And what I want to look for is Azure Storage. All right, and I'll click the Install button. It's going to make sure that we don't have some, it's going to determine whether we have some of these other libraries that it's dependent on, and if not, it's going to ask, can it install those as well? I'm going to go ahead and click the I accept, and now it's going to go about install all the dependencies and then install the client library as well. Okay, great. Now, you can also come back here and then look for updates, for updated versions of all the packages. And in this case, there are a couple of updates that we could apply because the current version of the Azure Storage client library is not synced up with the absolute latest versions of some of these other dependencies. So it's really up to you if you want to do that or not, but that's kind of the purpose of NuGet. And then the next thing that we're going to want to do is to create a connection string. And this is where that secondary key comes into play. What I'm going to want to do is add an app settings section to the configuration. And this will have a key that I'm calling storage connection string. I'm only using that by convention because so many examples use that as well. And then what we'll want to supply is the account name and the account key. So going back to the portal, the account name will be the storage account name. So let's go back to Visual Studio, and we'll put that there. And then we'll need to supply the account key. So let's go back to the portal one more time. And since I actually overpasted it or overcopied it, let's just go ahead and copy it a second time and paste it in a second time, like so. All right, so now I'm ready to go. The next thing that I'm going to want to do is begin writing code, and this is where I can go to this page and start, grabbing some sample code just to get started. I'm going to want to, for example, make a connection to the storage account. So I'll just Copy that in. I'm going to have to resolve any references to classes. I have a plugin right here, so what you see might be different from what I see on my screen right now. I'm using ReSharper. But essentially, this would just add the using statements necessary to get to the classes in the client library that we're going to use, and then we can continue on from there. Okay, so that's the basic course of events of how you set things up. Now, I told you that there were a couple of ways to get some examples. Now, I told you that probably the best source, again, is this page, and I used this page to create, let's go back here and open up this project called Table Storage Simple, right here. And all I do is just kind of follow through that example. I get a connection to the storage account. Once I have that, I can get a connection to the table by creating a cloud table client object and then calling the get table reference, passing in the table name that I want to either create or just get a reference to. And now that I have that, I can begin my work. Now, I said in the previous module that typically what I want to do is work in batch operations. So in this case, I've created two instances of a customer entity object, and I have inserted them into this batch operation, this table batch operation object. And once I have up to, I guess, 1,000 different inserts in this particular case in my batch operation, then I can execute the entire batch, passing in the batch operation. And then we've already talked about this, where we're actually looking at then retrieving these items out of the table as we just wrote them in, and then iterating through each of the items that we retrieve from the table query and printing them out in a console window. And then finally, I'm going to delete the table if the table exists. And I'm only doing this for testing purposes, just removing it after every test so that I can remove any of the test data. Again, this was culled from that web page that I will point you to yet a third time. And there's even more here that you can do to kind of flex your muscle and learn about how to do these things. Now, the other option that I explained earlier is that you can create these quick starts by going File, New Project, and going to the New Project dialog, drilling down into Cloud, and then Quick Starts. And in this case, we're going to create the Azure Table Storage Quick Start. You can see I've done this several times, so it just appends the 3 on the end of that. And you should be able to do this yourself, so I'm not going to distribute this code with this video, and it might change as new versions of the .NET SDK, the Azure SDK, are released. But we can see here from the program.cs, and let me go ahead and increase the font size here, all of the basic operations. First of all, you'll see that we're missing some references here. Let's go ahead and see if we can get a reference to it. No. So what needs to happen first is we're going to need to go out, use NuGet, and you can see here that some NuGet packages are missing from the solution. Click Restore from your online package sources. I'll click Restore. All right, after a few minutes, let's see if there's any updates. And so several packages, including the Azure Storage Client Library, has been updated since the time that this example was created. You can see here that the version that they used in this example was 3.1.0.1, whereas the current version is 4.3.0, as well as newer versions of all of the dependencies as well. So I'll go ahead and click Update All and accept that we're going to install new versions of all of those packages. And I can even see in the background that there are some, that the references have been resolved here. Now, I did get unable to install Newtonsoft because Storage 3.1 depends on it. So I think there's just, if we were to update all again, it should work. Okay, it looks like everything's been updated. So you might need to go through that exercise. The last thing I'll probably do just to make sure that this example works, just right click and select build, and it should build it one successful build. Awesome. So now we're ready to examine the code here, and I'm going to leave this for an exercise for you for the most part. I just wanted to show you how to get everything set up so that it should work. Note that you'll also have to go into the app config and provide the storage connection string. See here that it's currently using the emulator. So you're going to have to run the emulator first. We talked about that in a whole module several modules ago. And so start that up, and then you can run this example. It shows examples of how to do your basic table operations. So let's go there first. And this just calls out to more helper methods to insert or merge an entity, to retrieve an entity using what they're calling a point query. Let's take a look at that one. Right click and select, go to declaration. And so they're calling this use of the table operation object, calling the generic retrieve method, passing in the partition key and the row key, the most efficient storage query option. That's something we didn't see when we were looking at this page. All right, so that's extremely interesting. Let's go back here. And so we can just investigate this, how to do inserts, updates, deletes, how to insert large batches of entities at a time or perform batches. This is a range query, so it's going to select all of the entities in the table between one row key and another row key. And so I just want to make you aware that this exists and that you should spend an hour or so going through this to really understand, or you can reference it as you need it. Okay. Then finally, what I wanted to demonstrate is a project. Let me go ahead and open it up, that I was telling you about earlier, that plays into the strengths of Azure Table Storage. It's this one. And we said that one of the strengths of Azure Storage Tables is that you can write and forget, and it can store massive amounts of information, which really enables or facilitates two design patterns, one called seekers, command query responsibility segregation, and then event sourcing. So I created, I guess you would call a poor man's event sourcing example here. And I'm basically creating a test harness for a game, and we're going to capture game events so that we can later on decide whether somebody has gained an achievement by doing something so many times, or whatever the case might be. Now, if you take a look in the program.cs, there are a number of, there's a menu that gets displayed, and then based on the response of the menu, you're either going to record a battle event, a drink potion event, or a find loot event, or we're just going to display the hero stats. So for each one of these events, I wanted to make a write into a table, an Azure Storage table, and then I'm going to pull all of those events back out and replay them to rehydrate this domain object in my application. So to kind of illustrate this, let me just run the application so you can visualize it first of all. So let's start off by taking a look at the hero's current stats. All right, so currently he has health 25, gold 25, offensive 4, and defensive 0. Let's look if there's any events, and I haven't played this in a while, so I don't remember. But yeah, it shows that there are 3 events that that culminate in bringing the hero to those statistics right there. So there was a drink potion event, a found loot event, and then a battle that happened, and the result was that the hero's current state are indicated by these properties. All right, so let's say, for example, now just remember these numbers: 25, 25, 4, and 0. Let's go into another battle. So let's hit 1, and then let's display the hero stats again. All right, now the health is 22 and the gold is 29. What happened was the hero was hurt during battle, and he gained 4 gold pieces as a result of the battle. Let's go ahead and battle one more time, and then let's take a look at the hero's current stats. All right, it looks like he got a bonus. His health jumped up somehow, but he lost gold. So maybe I hit the wrong button there. I hit 4. What did I intend to do there? But at any rate, there might be a bug or two in this. I don't even know. But the key here is that we're looking at the actual events that occurred for the hero, replaying them in memory, reinstantiating them so that we can get back to the current state. And now we can see each of the events that led up to the hero's current state. Really, there's nothing all that exciting about how I went about building this. You can see most of the code here in the game event persistence class, but maybe how I went about structuring the classes might be helpful. It might be helpful to think in terms of what an event sourcing project looks like. Again, this is a very poor man's version of it. I'd encourage you to look around on the internet for better examples. But we're doing simple insertions. We're doing simple queries based on the player's ID as the partition key and things of that nature. As you can see in this case, there is a single method called getHero, and what it does is it starts the hero off at a specific hard-coded value. That's his starting point. And then it begins to apply all the events to the hero until we get back to where the current state of the hero is at. And we're just applying, finding the event name, and then either adding or subtracting to each of the properties: gold, health, defense, offense, and so on, depending on what the event was, and then another property called gold value change, health value change, defense value changed, offense value change, and so on. Okay. Finally, there is the game event itself, which, as you see, derives from table entity, and it has those simple properties that I described just a moment ago. Not only the event name, but then also the changes from each event to the hero's statistics. I'm also doing an interesting technique here that I learned from this Microsoft employee's blog on how to use row keys in order to order the events as I retrieve them back out, with the most recent event coming back first. So I would encourage you to take a look at that URL. Okay, so hopefully between all of these code examples, you'll have plenty to chew on. You might have 2 hours worth of material here to study on your own, to look at the comments, walk through the code, set breakpoints, just to see how they work. And hopefully this is a good example of a pattern for you that you could even utilize within your own applications. Okay, so hopefully that's helpful. We'll look at some more advanced cases beginning in the next module, and we'll see you there. Thank you.